Hello everyone and welcome to Big Rock Moto. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate that. So if you've been watching this channel for the past several years, you know that I am an extensive user of 360-degree cameras. All right, so one of my channel sponsors, Insta360, and this video is sponsored, that's my disclaimer right up front. They have released this brand new camera, which is the X4 Air. So let's back up just a little bit. Why do I love using 360 cameras so much? Well, the reason is pretty simple. I can place the camera just about anywhere I want to, and it captures video in 360-degree direction. So I don't have to worry about framing in the perfect shot. This also allows me to get really creative angles when riding motorcycles using the invisible selfie stick feature, mounting them to my handlebars, or even sometimes mounting them to my helmet if I want to do that. A camera like this can also be used as a regular action camera in single lens mode. Maybe you want to mount it to your helmet, and because of that reason, a camera like the X4 Air could possibly be the only motorcycle camera that you need to buy. And that's a really great way to save money, especially when we start talking about the price of this new X4 Air, which is under $400 for an 8K 360 camera, which is really phenomenal. All right, so here's what you need to know about the new X4 Air, and I'm holding the X5 here for comparison. So the X4 Air slots below their flagship X5, which is this camera right here, and is an upgraded but also a lighter and smaller version of the outgoing X4. This camera currently costs just $399, making it the most affordable 8K 360 camera available. The GoPro 2 Max 2 costs $499, the DJI Osmo 360 is $550, and the Insta360 X5 is also $550. This new X4 Air from Insta360 is currently the most lightweight 8K 360 camera available. It's even lighter than the new cameras that we've seen come out from GoPro with their Max 2 and DJI with their Osmo 360. So why does the lightweight matter so much? I really have been finding that the lighter weight of this camera is really a big advantage for capturing motorcycle footage, which is obviously what I do. The reason that I like the lighter weight is that when I mount the camera, typically I'll mount these on the invisible selfie stick. And when you've got that weight out here, it wants to move around a lot unless you get really, really good and creative with bracing the selfie stick in a lot of creative ways. So having less weight means it's bouncing around less, so I find it easier to use. Also, if I am going to mount this to a helmet or my handlebars, but especially if I'm going to mount it to my helmet, because it's lighter weight, it doesn't pull down on my helmet as much as some of the heavier 360 cameras do. So if you're going to use this as a double, to use this as an action camera, that's something that's really, really nice. All right, so here's some important features of the new X4 Air. It has user replaceable lenses just like the X5. The X4 did not have this. It has a larger imaging sensor than the outgoing X4. It also has adaptive tone and active HDR, or high dynamic range, which really improve the dynamic range. The dynamic range is going to be when you have a scene that has some really bright areas and some really dark areas. This camera, along with the X5 of course, is really, really good at capturing everything from that bright sky to those darker shadowed areas. The X4 Air also has improved noise reduction versus the outgoing X4, so you're going to see less noise and better image quality in those low light conditions. All right, so let's talk about X4 Air versus the X5. So should you just upgrade, spend more money, and get the Insta360 X5? I'm fortunate, I'm running a large motorcycle YouTube channel, so I have camera sponsors. Insta360 is very gracious to sponsor me, so of course I have pretty much a lot of the cameras that they make, right? But for you, you're not going to be able to afford to buy a bunch of different cameras, and price point is really, really important. So again, this is $400 and this is retailing at $550. What are the difference you should be looking for? So the X5 is a larger and heavier camera, but with that, what you get is a larger imaging sensor for greater image quality, especially at night. You get a larger screen, a larger battery, and it's generally better if you value the best image quality. You need the larger screen or you want the better battery life. All right, so I'm going to be putting together a video on motovlogging in 2025/2026 and talk about Some things I've learned over the years of doing this with how to mount your cameras, how to get good audio, the kinds of cameras to use, some editing workflow and tips like that. So that'll be a separate video, but for today's video in this review, I want to quickly go over my recommended settings for using the X4 Air. So my first tip is always make sure your camera, your 360 camera, has a clean lens. You can see that you have these fisheye or spherical lenses on these cameras. And it's really important that you keep them clean from dust and dirt, fingerprints, water, anything that might be on the lens, because if the lens is dirty, you're going to get a distorted image. So that's my first tip. All right, here's the settings that I like to use for the X4 Air. So for the mode, I use 360 mode. And for my resolution, I use 8K, and for frame rate, I go with 30 frames a second. We'll talk more about different frame rates and when you might use a lower or higher frame rate in that other video that I'll be publishing soon. The other settings I use, I turn adaptive tone on, I use active HDR. I only use the active HDR in the bright daytime conditions where you've got that dynamic range issue going on. Sharpness I set to medium, color standard, wind noise reduction strong. Go into the settings and make sure you turn the bit rate to high. The camera's going to come defaulted to a normal bit rate, but you want to turn that up to high. It is going to make the file sizes a little bit larger, but that's fine. Just get a bigger SD card, but it's going to give you a better image quality at the end of the day. The exposure, I like to run auto exposure. The only time you'd use manual exposure is if you were using maybe something like the X5 with an ND filter, and then you would need to control your exposure parameters, but that's getting very advanced and we're not going to talk about that in this video. And then for video encoding, I like to use H.265. H.265 is a newer video encoding standard. The file sizes are smaller and the quality is excellent. One more tip I have for using the X4 Air for motorcycle usage is get this little accessory for the X4 Air, and you put it on here, and it's a wind guard for the microphone. See how it just sits on there like that? This really helps improve the audio, especially when riding at higher speeds like you would be riding a bike. All right, well, I figured I'll show you a little bit about how I get some of the shots that you're seeing in the videos throughout this review today. So like here's the invisible selfie stick, and here's the X4 Air mounted here. Now in this particular bike, I'm lucky I have this trellis frame that I can attach this clamp to. So this is an Insta360 motorcycle clamp mount. And I'll show you how to use it on the handlebars here in a minute. They'll also give you this wrench, which you can use to really tighten down the clamp. You really need to make sure that where you clamp on, that you tighten this very, very tight, because with riding the motorcycle, this can move. Now, of course, you can adjust the length of the selfie stick. The more that you bring the selfie stick out, the more wobbling you're going to get when you're riding down the road. And if you go off-road, of course, that's going to be much worse. But from this angle here, so what I like to do is I like to position myself where the camera is, which I'm doing with this other camera right now, and you can kind of get a sense of what it's going to look like in the video. And if I bring the camera further out, you can now see that I'm getting an even different angle on the motorcycle when I bring it further out. If I bring it further in, then I can check and see what my angle is here. I might be getting some good of the front wheel, some good video there, the brakes, or looking back this way. So you can position it however you want. All right, so now I've taken the selfie stick off, but I'm still using the same clamp mount, and I've clamped it to the handlebars of this Honda NC750. So from this point of view, I can get a nice view of myself riding the bike, get a shot of my helmet, or if I wanted to position this higher or more off to the side using some other mounts, I could potentially get a view looking out over the front of the bike. There's all sorts of possibilities with a 360 camera. You could also, of course, mount this on your helmet, whether in 360 mode or in action camera mode. But you can see by using different mounts, the Insta360 sells, you can check out all the accessories on their website, that you can get a lot of creative angles, and it's a very, very useful tool for creating videos. All right, so here's my final thoughts on the review of the X4. I know this has been a bit of a general video. I'm not going into super specifics or comparing it with other cameras, but I really honestly will say that for $399, I'm really impressed with what Insta360 did. I think for a lot of people, this is going to be the right answer at the right price point. I really have enjoyed using it for its slightly smaller form factor, its lighter weight, which is really useful in motorcycle applications. And again, just going back to that price point, you're still getting 8K resolution. You're still getting all the functionality of this, using it either as a 360 camera or an action camera, all the great accessories that Insta360 offers, including their really highly developed editing applications, both for your mobile phone and for your desktop. You really just can't go wrong here for the $400 price that they're bringing out the X4 Air at. All right, well, if I missed anything, if you have questions or comments, put that down below and I will do my best to get back to you. I do have some affiliate links with Insta360, so I'd appreciate you using those whenever you're ordering their products, because I do get a small commission, which I reinvest back into content creation here at Big Rock Moto. I think that about wraps it up. Thank you so much for watching. Ride safe, and I'll see you out there.